So today's session is going to be on job descriptions. If you've been paying attention to the emails that come as a reminder, we're just one session out of order with this. We did the process tools last week, starting in the week before, starting with the work plans and checklists, and then finish up the rest of the tools last week. And now we're going to loop back and talk about job descriptions. The last session will be next week, and that, actually no, the second to the last section will be next week, and that's going to be on the message center and public processes, so this whole area of TouchStone right here, as well as account administration. And then we're going to finish up with the last session, which is 2 weeks from today, which will be on the control panel and management review. So just a reminder of how TouchStone's organized, just to kind of get us to this place of talking about job descriptions. You've got a list of all of your processes here in the 4 functions. So this is where this master list of processes by subject area is kept. Then you've got your organization chart, which is a picture of the positions, the people. And then the two come together when we create what we call job descriptions. So this is an example of a job description. And really what a job description is it's a listing of all the processes from the 4 functions here, list here, that each position is accountable for. So we literally select the processes from the 4 functions and add them to these boxes on the chart. Or another way to say it is we assign accountability for that process to a position on the org chart. So to build a job description, you have to have a box on the org chart first. So let's just put a new one in here just for fun. Then you select that box. And this is what it looks like when the job description hasn't been built yet. So for those of you who haven't gone through what I'm about to show you, your job descriptions will be blank when you click on them, and they'll look like this. So starting here at the top, if you want to edit the title of a position, you just select it, and it illuminates in yellow here for you. And so you can put in the change, or you can edit or change the name. These names should be position names. They should be titles of that position, and never somebody's name. If you want to, you can put the employee's name next to the title. So like I've got a little parentheses here with the hire date, but you could do the same thing and put the employee's name. In the background, what's happening in TouchStone is in account administration, you assign actual names to boxes on the chart. So you should always be able to see from your user list which positions they've been assigned to on the organization chart. But if you do like to see the name, then you can certainly put it in the box. Another thing that's kind of cool to put in the title of the position, if it's a future position, is the hire date, like you're seeing here. So you can think, in the future, in the next quarter or the next year, when will you hire that position in? So this is the title field. Right below here is the objective. And this, just like in a process objective, is the purpose of the position. So think about, what is this position here to do? List it out in a short sentence or 2. Even a phrase is good. But think about the overall result that this position is to achieve. It's a good sentence to come up with if you haven't done this already, because you're really thinking about the purpose of that position. And you're giving it like a mission statement almost. And this helps the employee understand in the end, what are they there to do. It also helps with hiring, because you can use these sentences as the headlines for the position when you put an ad out for it. This is also quick to edit. So if I click on this, I can open and edit this. There are 2 sections to the job description. There's strategic and tactical. The strategic work, or the strategic section, is for strategy work. It's for like the higher level work of a position. So it's going to be development work, managerial work, so work, processes and work that are used to get results through other people, analyzing things, analyzing numbers. So the strategic work, you want to consider it to be kind of the strategy or higher level work of a position. Generally, strategic work is found in the guiding the business function, this high function up here, because this is where all the strategy and managerial work would live. Tactical work is the technical work. It's the staff work. It's the doing it work. So generally, a managerial position, like this one, say, is going to have a lot of strategic processes and less tactical processes. Whereas a technical position, a non-managerial position, would have, maybe one strategic process and mostly tactical. So when you look at the, after you've constructed your job descriptions, if you see managerial positions and you've put a lot of technical work on that position and not so much strategic or managerial, then you may want to rethink what's happening in this position. Because it's a very common thing in small business for managers to get overloaded with technical work, leaving them less time to really do the strategy work, the analysis, the managerial work. One technique you can use in a growing company is if you have a manager like this one who is also a salesperson, then rather than putting all this sales work on their job description up here, give them 2 boxes on the org chart so they can see themselves in that technical role and the work that they do as a technician, as a salesperson, as opposed to the managerial work, which is what they do up here. And in a company that has grown into its organization strategy or has gotten to a place where it can have key managers in every role, there should be very little tactical work that goes on here, technical work. It should be somewhere around 80 to 90% managerial strategic work. And these sections on the organization chart help you to see that. This is the strategy, this is the tactical, and you can literally look and see how much work is there and how much time is spent doing it. There's really no right or wrong to these 2 sections. I've just given you our definition, but in the end, it's really up to you to decide, how you want to categorize things. So to add processes and build the job descriptions, you go here to this toolbar item called Add Existing Process. So when I select that, I'm looking over at the 4 functions list now. So the first question is what type of work it is, strategic or tactical. If this is a managerial position or a position that you know is going to have some amount of strategic work, then start with strategic. Go to the sub-function drop-down. Now this is going to show me all of my sub-functions from the 4 functions list over here. So when you hit this drop-down, you're going to see all of your sub-functions. So go to the sub-functions that are related to this position. So let's say this is a marketing position and the marketing manager. We might want to start with marketing strategy. So these are all the processes from the marketing strategy sub-function. And I would select these either one at a time or all together, or I can pick and choose just by holding on a PC, it's the control key I'm holding down. On the Mac, I think it's the shift. And then once you've selected the processes that you want, you just hit save, and TouchStone adds them. Then I would go back, add existing process again. Every manager is going to probably have processes from the employee management subfunction, so go there. And then you see these processes, add them, pick and choose, and then hit save, and then you've added them. Processes that are the accountability of more than one position, more than one person, would be on more than one job description. So, things like key performance indicators or employee lateness, those may be processes that are on every manager's job description. When you link a process to a job description, it's going to link the whole process, so everything that's inside, all the tools. You don't link individual work plans to positions. You link the whole process. So remember that when you're linking, and this kind of goes to how you've built the process. If you have a process that has multiple work plans in it or multiple tools like this one, then you want to make sure that it's okay that all the tools are linked to the right job descriptions. If you have something that's confidential or it's not supposed to be seen by another position and you go to link it and you realize that, then what I would do is just pull these tools out and move them into another process. So you could go to the 4 functions list, add a process, and then you choose the tool, and then you go here, move process tool, and move it out of this process into another, and then link that whole job description to the appropriate position. Let's go back here. So then it's just the same routine again. Add existing process. Once you've built the job descriptions and then you're kind of looking at it and you decide, well, then maybe this is strategic work, you put it into the wrong place, you can drag and drop all of these. So I can pull these down to strategic and I can pull these back up to tactical. So you can reorder them if you need to. Another key feature to be aware of with job descriptions and processes is if you select a process and you go here, link to job description, which is this toolbar item here, you can see which job descriptions this process has been linked to. So this is just another way to look at it. When you're building the job descriptions, you're going to choose, and do it kind of all at one time, which is the most efficient way to do it. But then after the job description is built, you can always choose a process and then from this view see if it's been put on the correct job descriptions. So from here I can remove the process or I can add it. So I'm just selecting the orange, which removes it, or I'm selecting the gray, which adds it. Okay. If you've added a process to a job description and then you decide that it's not on the correct job description, another way to remove it is just by selecting this remove X, and then I'm going to see all these red X's next to the titles, and then I just hit remove and say OK, and then that process has been removed. Now it hasn't been deleted. It still is on the 4 functions list here, and it's still on every other job. Here, so when you select this export arrow, you have these normal print features that you see all throughout TouchStone, print to your computer, to Word, to a PDF, or email. In addition to all of these, you also have the ability to print the operating manual for the position. So what this will do is it will print a cover page with the position title on it, and then it will print the job description, which is like and then it will print all inside of it. This would give you an external manual if needed. You can work it out to it. Of a job over here on the 4 functions list already. But once you've built your job descriptions, if you notice that something's missing, you notice a process that's missing, you can go add new process right here. So once these job descriptions are built, look through them. Sometimes it helps to kind of put the processes in order or workflow. These are all drag and drop. And then scrutinize it. Just say, what's missing here? Did I get everything? If you notice a process missing, then you just go here, add new process. And it's asking you strategic or tactical section. Put in the name of the process. I'm going to put a 2 because I think I already have this in here somewhere. because if I had this title already, I would get the duplicate error. Then I tell TouchStone which subfunction to put it in. So this is key. This is just showing you that even if you're adding a process directly to a job description, TouchStone's always going to force you to keep the 4 functions list accurate, because that is the place where the master list of every process is. So it's asking you which subfunction does this process go in. So you choose that subfunction and then you hit save. So now TouchStone has added this process down here at the bottom. You notice that this process has an objective underneath it. I'll move it up here. So you see how I'm putting subjective listed. This one is added. Sometimes you'll put subjective in. Once you go to job description, it becomes more obvious because you can see it like this. You can see that it's missing. So go ahead and fill in objectives that you see that are missing, because it kind of fills out the job description and makes it so that when someone's glancing through it, they can read that objective and know exactly what is inside that process. So if I select this new process we just added, just as a reminder, you click here to put the objective in. But then we also see from this breadcrumb trail that it's put this process in the finance subfunction where I told it to. Now, if I was to go and remove this process just this way, it's just removing it from the job description, but this process is still over here in the finance subfunction. So if you do add a process, you remove it from a job description, remember to go to your 4 functions list and find it there and delete it. Okay, so let's talk about using of job descriptions. But before I do that, I just want to point out one thing for new users and people who haven't built their job descriptions yet. This is a job description right here that I got a few days ago. And sometimes new users will send me job descriptions and say, well, what do I do with this inside of TouchStone? So this would be a situation where you have an existing job description, you're just starting to use TouchStone, and you want to know what to do with it in TouchStone. What I would not do is just upload this as a file and say, cool, now it's in TouchStone. What I would do is turn it into a TouchStone job description, because a job description like this one can help you to create real process titles out of this work. So this is a nicely done one. Usually the ones I see are pretty sloppy, but this one shows it's a nice goal, it's a nice result, it's a nice policy, but what that really needs is a process called welcoming clients into the salon, or greeting clients. So then you can see inside of that process, this would be a task. Welcome them within 30 seconds. It might even have a script that says this is how you say that, and then it would have more tasks. If it was done really well, it would say, you know, offer them some coffee, have them sit down, tell them how long they have to wait. So there's all these other things that go on in welcoming clients that is way more than what this is saying. So what the opportunity here is to look at this work that somebody's identified and say, what's missing? And you do that by identifying the process, putting it into TouchStone, linking it to the job description, and then making this a task within it. Make sure every client is addressed by his or her name. Well, that probably lives inside of that greeting process as well. Schedule clients for appropriate service. Well, that's a scheduling process. Confirmation calls, well, that's a confirmation call process. Making sure clients are handled in the appropriate time. That's kind of vague. Like, what does that mean? Maybe it's a part of the greeting process to make sure that you've told them what time, and then make sure that it's dealt with, or they're given to their stylist in that amount of time. Refer all dissatisfied clients to management. Well, that's kind of passing the buck. I mean, what they really need is a client complaint process. Ensure, this is a great one, ensure that all clients leave happy. I laugh at this because you could give this job description to a new employee and you say, okay, this is your job. Make sure all clients leave happy. Well, how do they do that? How do you make sure that every client leaves happy? So this is what we call advocating accountability rather than truly delegating it. When you delegate it, you say, here's our client happiness process. These are the tasks of how to do that. These are the frequently asked questions. This is the content, the training on how to do that. So learn this, rather than just saying, make sure they're all happy and then getting mad at them when they're not happy. So if you have existing job descriptions, the point I wanted to make is take the work items on it and turn it into real processes. And then I further wanted to make the point that this is a dearth of information here. Like, this is not effective enough to really, this type of job description, to really train an employee well. So the opportunity is to turn it into something like this, where you've created real processes and have real training for the employee. Okay, so let's talk about using job descriptions. So job descriptions themselves are fantastic management tools. They're the most important management tool. Now, that's my not so humble opinion, but I'm going to tell you why. A job description is, number one, an accurate, complete list of what each employee is accountable for. It's a specific list. So the job descriptions in TouchStone are very clear, specific items that each employee is responsible for. There's no vagueness here. There's nothing like what's happening over here, where I'm very like, just make people happy. Or one I saw the other day, a job description said, act like a leader. And then the person's like, well, nobody knows how to act like a leader. Well, of course, you can't, I mean, you can hire people out of leadership school if that exists, and then you can assume they know how to be leaders. But if it's really important to your company that your managers be leaders, well, then you need a leadership system. That's the only fair way to hold someone accountable to that. So the job descriptions in TouchStone are these clear, specific lists of exactly what the employee is responsible for. And for the reasons that I've already said, that's a fantastic tool for a manager, because I can really hold people accountable. I can really help to teach them, to influence them on, to allow them to grow. And it's a fair way to do it. Because if you throw out these vague, subjective statements and then you try to hold people accountable to them as a manager, and then you get mad when they're not doing them, that is a management style that is probably one of the reasons why a lot of employees leave. So these job descriptions give a manager a tool to really rely on. They use a tool like a job description for, first of all, new employee training. This is a fantastic new employee training tool, because it's basically like a checklist that I can check off as I teach the employee each of these processes. In fact, in management review, there's a tool in there to actually check off. So if you go to an employee, you can go to every process on their job description here and fill in these flags that say, yes, I've trained them in every single one of these tools. And I can even keep notes over here. So the job descriptions are, in a sense, a checklist of what that new employee needs to be trained in. You can even go further than that and then figure out how much time it will take an employee to learn each of these things. So for new employee training, it gives the employee a thorough training, and then it also gives the manager the ability to track the training of that employee, and then also decide if they're learning it efficiently, because I would know theoretically how much, or practically how much time each of these processes should take to train. And if I add up all that time, then I would know the amount of time that it takes to train a new employee in this position. And then if I times that by the training time and then the employee's time, I'll know how much money it will take me to train a new employee. And if I weigh those statistics against all the new employee training I'm doing, I can see how well these new employees are learning and ultimately decide if they're going to be successful. And I would know that early on, rather than it being 6 months, a year down the road when I've already spent tens of thousands of dollars dealing with their inabilities. So for new employee training purposes, the job descriptions become just an incredible tool. For ongoing training, the job descriptions are a great management tool. So once an employee is thoroughly trained in all their processes, they're doing their work, I can use this as a guide to help me continue to train and work with the employee. So there's a process in the library called one-on-one meetings. It's actually right here on this job description. And what this meeting process is about is it kind of encourages managers to meet with their employees on a regular basis one-on-one. So in these meetings, and they can be for managerial positions, manager to manager, I think once a week is really essential. Just an hour once a week where these two people sit down together and really talk about how is it going. For other types of positions, if you can get it once a month, I think that's great. If you can only do it once a quarter, that's better than nothing. But the point is to have regular meetings where somebody sits down with that employee and says, hey, how's it going? And then uses this job description as an agenda. So I would sit down with the employee once a week and I'd say, okay, how's it going with client satisfaction? How do you feel about how that's been happening? There's this incident that happened last week. How did that turn out? Then you go to the next one. How do you feel about the client complaints process? Have you been able to deal with those effectively? Is the process working? Is it working for you? What do you think could be better about it? And then you go down to client intake and you say, okay, so client intake, we've changed this and this here, so the process has been updated. I just wanted to show you that. I noticed last week that during client intake you missed the signing of the contract, or you missed doing this and this, and I saw that because the checklist wasn't done or the note was not put in place or the client complained. So I'm talking to the employee about a problem. So there was a problem with this client intake. And I would use the job description and use the process to communicate with the employee about that. What's not right with the process? How come that error occurred? What could be better about the process? Did you have a hard time following it? Did you not understand? So you'll notice how my tone is like, what is wrong with the process? Why didn't it work? How could it be better? Rather than, you made this mistake, you didn't get it, I've already trained you, what's wrong with you? You see the difference? Managers who approach things with what's wrong with you suddenly have all this emotion in the way of getting the result they want, which is to work the employee through it or to make sure that the process is improved, because it's not always the employee's fault. So the point I'm trying to make is that the job descriptions help a manager to communicate in a different way, to communicate about the process, about the documentation, about what could be better, rather than personal things. So in these one-on-one meetings here, you can go through, and you may not be able to get through every single one in one meeting, but you can talk about how each of the processes is going. This has the further effect of making sure that processes are spoken about all the time, that they're focused on, that the employee knows that the manager is always viewing these as important and always looking for ways to make them better and always putting them on the forefront. If that doesn't happen with managers and with employees, then the processes get forgotten. They get kind of like, okay, that was great back then, but I don't need that anymore now because I've memorized it. So using these job descriptions as a management tool always keeps all of the processes relevant and on the forefront. You can use job descriptions as a management tool for performance reviews. So let's imagine that every month I'd been having a meeting like this with my employees, which I do, by the way. We do some employees once a week and some once a month. So we have these meetings once a month. That means I get 12 in a year. And during these hour-long meetings, we're talking about the processes. We're talking about their work and how they're doing. things come up around, like if you look at this, if I show you this process, here's a meeting form. You know, other things can come up, like items to discuss or identify or resolve any work or personal issues that are happening, other notes. So this form itself kind of comes up, has other categories or things that we can discuss. But we are talking about the processes. And we're also talking about any issues the employees are having with the work that they're doing. So we have these conversations once a month all the way till we get to the end of the year, and it's time for their performance review. The performance review, the one that's in the library over here in Guiding the Business, all it is a form where you cut and paste these processes into the form, and then the manager gives a review of each of the processes. So I say to myself, how did she do with client satisfaction this year? Is it excellent, fair, poor? I give her a rating, I write comments. How's customer complaints? Excellent, fair, poor, and I write comments. So you can look at that performance review over here in the library if you're interested in it. But it uses the job descriptions for the review. And you can imagine if I've been meeting with this employee all throughout the year talking about this same thing, when I go do the review, it's so easy for me. I can look back at my meeting notes. When I actually do these reviews, a lot of our job descriptions are 20 processes long. It takes me maybe 20 minutes. If I'm having certain specific issues with employees, it may take 30 minutes for me to fill out the review. And for those of you who do performance reviews and in other ways, you'll know that that's a very short amount of time. And it's because, first of all, there's a process for it, but most importantly, we've had this communication all year about it. This isn't new stuff. If I have something negative to say, I don't have to like make up a reason why or try to remember what happened 6 months ago. I already know. And the more important point is the employee already knows. So it's not some anxious kind of, oh God, what am I going to say? What's she going to say? She already knows because we've already talked about it. So this loop of the one-on-one meetings and then to the performance review is a great management cycle. And all these tools are in the library over here for you to use. Another way to use performance reviews, to use job descriptions is in a department setting. So if you've got salespeople, like you have 4 salespeople here, they all have the same job description. They all do the same processes. There may be some deviation, but for the most part, they do the same. The sales lead maybe has a department meeting once a month or once a week, or the manager marketing and sales does. So in that department meeting, you can have like a process of the month. So you could go to the job description, and this work is probably in the wrong place, but look down here, and you could say, okay, this month we're going to talk about the warm lead selling process. So the manager would announce this and say, this month, this is the process of the month, or this is the process of the quarter. So what I want all you salespeople to do is throughout this next few weeks, think about this process. Go to TouchStone, study it. As you do it, think about it. Make notes about what you think is working well and is not working well. Our effort here for this process is to innovate it, make it better. So how do you think it could be better? And then after you give them some time to do that, then you have the department meeting, and for 15 minutes, if that's all you can spare within the meeting time, go through the process of the month and say, what are your ideas on warm lead selling? How could it be better? What can we add to it? And then congratulate people when they come up with good ideas. And then what that's doing is it's giving just a small amount of time every month to focus on a process, getting people to know that you're continuing to view the documentation as important and you're wanting to capture their innovative ideas and make it even better. Another effect it has is you're constantly innovating and updating your processes. That's key. You're constantly doing it all throughout the year. I heard a TouchStone user the other day say, well, we developed a process for the annual update of all the processes. And you go in and look at it and tell me what you think. And the minute they said that, I thought, well, that's a ridiculous notion. You don't wait until the end of the year to update everything. You just don't, because then you're losing out on people aren't using them until they're updated. So processes need to be updated all the time, and having this focus where managers are bringing it up in meetings and bringing it up in department meetings is a good way to do it. Okay, so every box on the chart should have a job description, and the job descriptions are the processes linked from over here to the boxes on the chart. For those of you who haven't finished your documentation yet, so you're in the process of still documenting processes, I'll give you a few tips on using the job descriptions to continue to help you document. So on once processes have all been linked from here to here, you now can view the processes from the org chart itself. You don't necessarily have to go here. So this is a good way to look at it when you're thinking about how are we going to get all the processes documented. So consider going box by box on the org chart. Also consider who you can get involved with the documenting. If you have salespeople, for example, or you have a customer service person, once the job description is built, you can then tell that person, hey, go to TouchStone. You can give them access to just this position. Everything else can be grayed out. And then you can say, I've put the processes in order of priority. So you put them in order of how you want them developed. And I want you to work on the very first one. And we're going to give it, I want you to spend 3 hours a week on this. And we're going to give this a due date of the 15th. Spend 3 hours a week on it, and then on the 15th, we're going to sit and look at it together. So you've given them a little due date here, and you've said, in our next meeting on the 15th, we're going to sit and talk about it. Then on the 15th, sit and go through it with that employee, decide what needs to be better or if it's good. If the process looks good, go back into the title, delete the date, and then mark it as complete, and then move on to the next process. So use the job description in TouchStone as your process documentation management tool, really. There's no reason to like export all this out into a spreadsheet and have a Gantt chart with all the dates, and I feel like that just makes it more complicated than it needs to be. Use TouchStone to manage the project of the documentation. It makes the most sense. So use the job descriptions, look at them, put the processes in order of priority. If your employees don't have no employees have time, they're all busy. So you're going to have to make the time for them to be able to help you with the documentation. If you're a manager on the line and you've been tasked with documenting the processes of your department, you're going to need to find the time to do it. So think about a manageable amount. 1 hour a day is fantastic. Even 3 hours a week is better than nothing. So with that 3 hours a week in mind, put the processes in order of priority and decide what can be done in 3 hours for each of the processes. How many weeks do you need? If you're a manager and you're having multiple people within a department help you to document, so let's say you have 4 salespeople and you've chosen the most adept salesperson to help you, and then the others will give feedback, then you can go to the salesperson's job description, and in the title of the process you could even put the employee's initials that's going to be working on it, and then the targeted due date. So what this will do is it will help you to see who's working on what in case you've decided to like give multiple salespeople processes on the salesperson's job description. So you can see my initials right here. You could even then, as the person managing this, go up to the search field up here and search a person's initials, and then you would see every process with their initials and the date. So that's another way of kind of looking at it rather than looking at each job description. So think about how each process will be documented. Delegate it by putting someone's initials or assigning them a whole position, and then tick through each of the processes one at a time. To go from 0 to fully documented is going to take 6 to 8 months and sometimes even a year, unless you have full-time people who are working on this. exclusively, then it could be faster. But if you've got a organization or a company where everyone's already got a full-time job and now you're saying, help us document, it's going to be slow progression over time. And sometimes I think that that is good, because as you slowly document and implement, people start to absorb it. If it all happens at once, sometimes it's overwhelming and people don't absorb it well enough. Okay, let's talk about the system of the week. And as we talk about it, I'm also going to start, I'm going to discuss the control panel a little bit more and how to use that. There's going to be a whole session on this 2 weeks from today. But the job descriptions are associated with the control panels. So I think it's a good time to kind of make that link. So every process that's put on a job description here will appear in the control panel for that position. So employees over in account administration are assigned control panels, and they're actually assigned positions. So here in account administration, if we click on my name here, we'll go to control panel, you'll see I have a control panel for the manager of marketing and sales. So this is the organization chart just in simple view, and I've been given a control panel for this position. That's going to give me access to all the processes on that job description and access to use them. So over here on the home screen, if we select this control panel, all these processes here are the same processes that are on the job description over here. So that's the relationship between the job description and the control panel. All the processes here on those job descriptions are what will appear in the control panel for that position. It looks a little different because it's not just strategic and tactical. I've got the ability to create these work groups right here. So I can say this is my recruiting and hiring work, this is my employee training work, this is my end of the month work, and I can organize them into these categories. So once you've got the processes documented, or even 50% of them documented, because in the control panel you can put a little group down here called not completed yet if you want, and move processes into that aren't done yet, and keep the ones that are done and should be used all into the groups. So here's where an employee would go to access their processes on a regular basis. They wouldn't go here to the organization chart necessarily. It's better to have them go to a control panel. When they select a process from the control panel, it opens these processes in its read-only view, so they can't edit or change anything here. They're just going here to use it. So they can access checklists like this one, fill them out, and save them back to TouchStone. So this is where I would look at the processes, review them. When we were talking before about having a department meeting and then having the salespeople give feedback, they can go right here to the control panel and give their feedback on the process of the month right here and put in notes about it. And then in the save as, they can say, look at this for our meeting. And then when they save this, it puts this in the save as to the manager. And when they run a report before the meeting, they'll see these and they'll see the notes. So they can, in effect, bring the feedback to the meeting. So the process of the week that I chose is time management. And this might sound like, a boring thing, but it's actually relative to what we're talking about today in the sense that documenting of processes, using of processes, it's a whole new way to work. And sometimes it requires looking at efficiencies. So this is in the library, time management process, in the Guiding the Business library. And within this process, there are some what I would call just true timeless ideas for time management. I study time management a lot because I'm interested in the subject, and I think that people, come up with new things. But the basic kind of Covey approach that we've all known forever has lived forever because it works. The reason time management doesn't work is because people never do it long enough. It takes, I can't remember what they say, but maybe 100 times of doing something to make it a habit. So habits take effort. And if you look at things in your life or things about your time that you want to change, unless you create a new habit, then they never change. So time management takes effort to really gain the benefit of. This concept is important because working strategically is kind of the same thing. It takes effort. You can think of 1,000 reasons not to do it. You have that little yeah but in your head going, yeah, but I'm busy, yeah, but I need sales, yeah, but that's not important right now, yeah, but that's not going to help me tomorrow. What that voice in your head is stopping you from doing is getting the long-term result of working strategically. Because what you do today and now is not going to benefit you tomorrow, but 6 months from now it will. So time management is the same idea. These things that you're doing now in the moment may not give you an immediate result, but if you do them over time, then it saves an incredible amount of time and change the way you go to work every day. So there are some work plans up here on daily planning. This is just kind of like a step-by-step of why it's important. There's even like a little video here that you can watch. Daily activity logs, so this explains why that's important. Eliminating interruptions, this is a great work plan. A lot of us get like interrupted by little things, and it's just a little bit of time here and there, but if you add it all up, you can see what an incredible time waste it is. Like, answering your phone every time it rings, checking your email every 5 seconds. These distractions or things that we feel like are the most immediate thing tend to be the biggest time wasters. Other things like having a disorganized desk, not having things filed correctly, dumping papers into a pile and then spending 10 minutes trying to find something. So little things like that, which add up to a big amount of time in the end. So these little eliminator are good kind of techniques. There's a couple articles in here about how to eliminate interruptions, the big hole in your day. This is a good one by Dr. Wetmore. Cost of interruptions, if you aren't buying what I'm saying about how much time you're wasted by these little interruptions that happen all the time, take a look at this article because there's a spreadsheet that helps you track it because it is huge in the end. And speaking of interruptions, before when I was talking about having these one-on-one meetings with a manager, so employee to manager, and having them be scheduled on a regular basis, once a week, once a month, this is a huge time saver because things you can teach your employees that things that can be saved for the meeting should be saved for the meeting. And that stops them and you as the manager, if I'm speaking to managers, from interrupting each other all the time. So things that can wait, then you put it on the agenda and wait for the meeting. Don't go in and interrupt someone, or don't go in and interrupt the manager or the manager to the employee when it's not necessary. So the heart of this process is down here in these forms, and we realize that you may have Outlook and other systems that you use for calendaring and time management and things like that. So these are just basic actual Excel spreadsheet or Word forms that you can use, but this can easily be translated into Google Docs or Outlook, whatever you're using. This tool here, the Daily Planner, is a good tool. Outlook has sort of a version of this where you can create priority tasks so you can use this in Outlook, but basically the heart of this is everyone's got a schedule of things they have to accomplish during one day. If you have meetings or appointments or hard set times that you're meeting, then you put them into your schedule. You then have high priority tasks, phone calls, and other tasks. So the idea of this is at the end of every day or at the beginning of every day. So this is what I mean about creating a routine. Spend 5 minutes planning out your day, whether it be at the end of one day or the beginning of the next. Plan out what you're going to do that day. So put in all your hard appointments here, and then put in your high priority tasks for the day. These are the things that you can reasonably get done that day. High priority phone calls that you have to make. Leave unscheduled time in between meetings. Schedule in your strategic time. Schedule in the times when you're going to return phone calls. So plan it out for the day. Just looking at your calendar and seeing your appointments isn't enough. You want to think about, okay, throughout the day, what am I going to try to accomplish? This takes, for me, it takes like 5 minutes. It's not that huge of an exercise. And then I can use it to help keep me on track throughout the day. What are these high priority tasks that I want to get done? Did I find time to do them during the day? If not, I roll it over into the next day. This really helps against that feeling of you come into the office and you got all this stuff to do and you get to the end of the day and you're like, well, I didn't get anything done. What did I do today? And it's just because you got pulled in 50,000 different directions and got inefficient with what you were doing. So at least, and I still have those days, but at least I can look back at this and say, well, what happened? Why could I not accomplish what I planned that day? And it goes back to things like this, the interruptions. And then I learn from that, and then I put it back into the next day. So some type of version of this is a really great, effective way to start to try to manage your time. It's not a huge task. It's something small that anyone can start with. A time log. So we do time logging just for billable time and tracking time. A lot of businesses need to do this for billing reasons. Some need to do it for efficiency reasons and don't. So this is just an exercise where you just log in what you're doing throughout that day. If you do this daily planning exercise and you just can't make it work, you're just like, what happened today? Then this is what you need to default to. So fill out a daily time log for a couple weeks and then analyze it. Look and see, what did you do? What were your interruptions? What was causing a waste of time? If you have an employee who you feel is inefficient, not because they're a bad employee, but maybe because they're overburdened or they've got too many results in too many different areas. So be open to the fact that maybe how you've asked them to spend their time is inefficient, or they're just not the best time managers. Irregardless of the reason, this is a good way to figure out what's going on. So ask the employee to fill the time log out for a few weeks and then sit with them together with an open mind and say, what is interrupting you? How is time being wasted here? Think about the eliminating interruptions and come up with a few strategies that might help them be more efficient with their time. Some of the efficiencies might be things that the company has to do for them. Having them have less accountabilities or accountabilities in spanning departments or too many results, it becomes inefficient. Or having them be kind of the answer person for everything. So this will kind of put a microscope on it and illuminate what's happening with that employee. So over here in the control panel, there's you can use these tools inside of TouchStone. So down here is the time management process. So I can go to this and I can fill out a daily planning checklist if I want. I can fill out the daily planning form right here. So here's the form inside of TouchStone. Again, if you have Outlook or other ways to do this, then certainly do that. But if you don't, this is a good place to do it. This is where I do it. We use Outlook, or we actually use Infusionsoft, but I like this better because I can see it like on one sheet, and then I can refer from one day to the next. And some days I forget to do it, and so, or I just don't do it. I don't forget, I just don't do it. And so then I'll do it the next day, and then I can look at these together and see kind of what happened during the week. It's just easier for me to see it this way. But you can go right in here and fill this form out and then save it back to TouchStone. Then the next day when I'm planning for the following day, I go back to it, and then I call that form up again, and I can view what happened yesterday. For time logging, there are other tools to use for time logging. This is just another version of, this is in the time management process as well. But here, these fields are all live, so I can put in the activity, and I can do begin to end, and I kind of track this all day. You can open this in a second window just by right-clicking and saying open in a second window, and then I've got TouchStone open in one window and this open in another. So it can fill out this daily time log every week, every day, and save it back to TouchStone. Then if my manager wants to go and look at it, they can go up here to reports, and go to Management Review. And down here, I could look at it for all employees, or I could go to a specific employee, and then I hit Run Report. And then I can see, all the time logs that were done here in this list. If you choose nothing, you can see all employees. If I choose the Save As, like I'm looking for a specific day, if they saved it as that day and I hit Run Report, then I can see that day. Here's the time log for Monday. Or I can search for a date range right here. And then you see a list of these time logs. So there's a lot more to the control panel and Management Review, and again, we're going to be talking about this in a whole meeting. But think about what your version of time management would be. Think about some of the basic kind of concepts for that. I think this gets lost a lot in businesses. Think about interruptions. Even if you could eliminate a few interruptions a day, over the long haul, it's a huge amount of time. Think about your employees. Make this the process of the week, maybe, where you all sit and think, what would make us more efficient? We used to do this kind of exercise around time management, and we made it like a quarterly thing where we talk about time management. And sometimes within departments, other departments are making that department less efficient because of inefficiencies in that other department. So having this conversation about time management, you would hear the employees say, well, we can't get payroll done because the operations department never gives us the timesheets late, and then they're inaccurate because they don't fill them out right. So then we have to go back to them. So you get this interdepartmental conversation going. And what you can do is you can solve these long-term inefficiencies that have been going on forever, and you can solve them with processes. So you can build a new time tracking process for the operations department that they have to follow, which then increases efficiency within the payroll department.